The mall was nearly deserted, its gleaming floors reflecting harsh fluorescent lights. It was late, the kind of late where even the most determined shoppers had called it a night. But not him. He needed the solitude, the quiet of empty corridors where he could wander without pressure or purpose. He stepped into the elevator, its metallic sheen cool against his fingertips. Just as the doors began to slide shut, a soft voice called out, "Hold the door, please." He instinctively hit the open button. A girl rushed in, her breath slightly uneven from hurrying. She was beautiful, with dark hair framing her face and eyes that held a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. "Thanks," she murmured, glancing away as if embarrassed by her own urgency. "No problem," he replied, offering a polite smile. They stood in silence, the awkwardness of strangers sharing a confined space settling between them. The elevator lurched upward, its mechanical hum filling the void. Then, with a sudden, violent jolt, everything stopped. The lights flickered once. Twice. Then darkness swallowed them whole. A sharp gasp escaped her lips, followed by the panicked rustling of fabric. "Oh God! No, no, no!" "Hey, it's okay," he said quickly, his voice steady. "It's probably just a temporary glitch. These things happen." Her breathing was shallow, rapid. The kind of breathing that came with genuine terror. Without thinking, she reached out, her fingers latching onto his arm with surprising strength. I hate elevators. And darkness. This is my worst nightmare." The admission came out in a rush, trembling and raw. For a moment, he was unsure how to respond. But the desperation in her grip pushed him to try. "All right, let's not focus on that," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "What's your name?" She hesitated before whispering, "Sophie." "Well, Sophie, I'm Adam. And since we're currently stuck in here together, how about I try to take your mind off things?" A reluctant laugh bubbled up from her throat, strained but real. "How do you plan to do that?" "With terrible jokes, of course. It's my specialty." Even in the darkness, he could sense her eyebrow arching skeptically. "All right, hit me with your worst." "Okay. Why did the elevator break down?" "Why?" "Because it was overworked and needed a lift." A laugh slipped from her lips, fragile but genuine. The sound eased the tension clinging to the small space. "That was terrible," she admitted, her grip on his arm loosening slightly. "I did warn you. Want another?" "Sure. But only if it's worse than the last one." He chuckled, pleased by the challenge. "Oh, I've got 1,000,000 of them. And we've got all the time in the world, or until someone rescues us." The darkness no longer felt so heavy. And for the first time, he saw her fear beginning to subside. "Keep going," she said softly, her voice steadier than before. Minutes stretched into an hour. The confined space felt both intimate and endless, their conversations tumbling from one topic to another like loose marbles on a slanted floor. Adam kept the bad jokes rolling, each one coaxing Sophie's nervous laughter until genuine amusement began to surface. "All right, I've got a real stinker," Adam declared with mock seriousness. "Why did the elevator refuse to work on weekends?" Sophie's voice was calmer now, curiosity laced through her words. "Why?" "Because it needed to unwind and lift its own spirits." A soft groan mingled with her laugh. "That was awful. But effective. Exactly my goal." His tone was light, but his attention remained fixed on her. Beneath her forced smiles, he could still sense her unease. "Do you really think someone's coming?" she asked, her voice slipping into vulnerability. "Absolutely. I'm sure they're working on it. These things just take time." His confidence was mostly for her benefit, but it felt real enough. Silence seeped in, heavy and awkward. Adam shifted, his back pressed against the cold metal wall. "So, Sophie, why were you wandering around a mall at this hour?" She hesitated, as if debating whether to answer. "Just trying to clear my head. Work's been a nightmare, and sometimes late-night shopping feels like the only escape." "Ah, the good old retail therapy. I get it. And you? Why are you here?" "Couldn't sleep. I thought maybe walking around would help." He shrugged, even though she couldn't see it. "Guess we both needed an escape." "Looks like we both got trapped instead," Sophie replied, her words carrying an unintended double meaning. He considered her statement, something in it resonating deeply. Maybe getting stuck was the point. A forced pause. "Yeah, well, I'd rather have found clarity somewhere other than a metal box. Fair enough. But, if it's any consolation, at least you've got amazing company. Oh, definitely. Your terrible jokes are truly life-changing, she shot back, the sarcasm softened by a smile he could almost feel. I'll take that as a compliment. Their voices were the only sounds echoing in the darkness. The absence of sight heightened everything else, their words, their breaths, the subtle shifts of movement. Somehow, the strangeness of it all made talking easier. I'm actually feeling okay, Sophie admitted, her tone carrying a hint of wonder. You're weirdly good at distraction. High praise. Though I prefer charmingly effective. She laughed again, the kind of laugh that felt free from anxiety. So, what happens when the lights come back on? Sophie asked. Then, we part ways, I suppose. Unless you're planning to sue me for all the terrible jokes. I'll consider it. Her voice softened, sincerity threading through her words. Thanks, Adam. For making this, not as awful as it could have been. Happy to help. And hey, when we get out of here, maybe we could continue this conversation somewhere with actual lighting and less risk of suffocation. She hesitated, but only for a moment. Yeah, I'd like that. The darkness didn't seem so bad anymore. After what felt like an eternity, the elevator trembled and then jerked back to life. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, their harsh glow forcing Sophie to blink against the sudden brightness. Adam squinted too, his eyes adjusting as the elevator resumed its upward crawl. There we go. Rescued by technology's fickle mercy, Adam quipped, though the relief in his voice was undeniable. Sophie released a shaky breath, her hand slowly peeling away from his arm. Embarrassment tinted her cheeks, but gratitude overpowered her awkwardness. I seriously thought we'd be stuck there forever. Forever would have been tough. I only had about 5 more jokes lined up before I'd have to start recycling them, Adam replied with a grin. Sophie laughed, her nerves unwinding with every passing second. But now, with the lights back on, she was acutely aware of the fact that she'd clung to this stranger's arm like a lifeline. Yet somehow, the vulnerability felt less shameful and more liberating. As the elevator doors slid open at the ground floor, they stepped out into the empty corridor. The world outside felt jarringly normal compared to the strange intimacy they'd just shared. So, guess this is where we part ways? Sophie asked, her voice hesitant. Not necessarily, Adam said, his gaze steady. I mean, if you're interested, we could keep this conversation going. Preferably somewhere with coffee instead of malfunctioning elevators. She bit her lip, her mind warring between caution and curiosity. Rationality urged her to walk away, to chalk this encounter up as a bizarre, one-time event. But the warmth in Adam's voice, the way he'd eased her panic with nothing but humor and kindness, made her hesitate. Coffee sounds nice, she admitted, her smile slowly returning. And you did help me survive my worst nightmare, so I guess I owe you that much. It's a date, then, Adam said, his own smile widening. Or at the very least, a caffeine-fueled attempt at normal conversation. They walked out of the mall together, the cool night air washing over them like a gentle reminder of reality. Sophie's steps were lighter than before, her anxiety having evaporated somewhere between the darkness of the elevator and the light of Adam's easy humor. The coffee shop they found was small and quiet, the perfect setting for tentative words and honest laughter. Hours slipped away, conversation flowing effortlessly from one topic to the next. Sophie learned that Adam was an illustrator who freelanced from home, a man who valued creativity over conformity. Their differences became apparent as well, her meticulous planning clashed with his easygoing spontaneity. But it didn't feel like a barrier. If anything, it was refreshing. Maybe getting stuck in that elevator wasn't so bad after all, Sophie mused, her hands wrapped around a mug of steaming coffee. Hey, I'm just happy my terrible jokes worked their magic, Adam said with a wink. Sophie shook her head, her smile genuine. They did. And I guess you did, too. Adam's expression softened, his gaze searching hers. So, would you want to do this again? Without the whole near-death experience part, of course. Yes, she replied before doubt could steal her courage. I'd like that. Their eyes met, the kind of moment that felt both inevitable and terrifying. Days blurred into weeks, and their coffee dates became a comforting routine. Adam's humor remained relentless, his easy charm a constant balm to Sophie's otherwise stressful existence. They explored the city's quiet corners together, their conversations deepening like pages added to an unfolding book. But as their connection grew, so did Sophie's anxiety. The walls she'd carefully built around her heart began to crumble, leaving her exposed and uncertain. Work continued to consume her, its demands devouring her time and energy. Yet, Adam's presence lingered in her thoughts, a reminder of the joy she so often denied herself. "You're working yourself to death," Adam said one evening as they strolled along the river, the city lights shimmering against the water. "When's the last time you just enjoyed something without thinking about deadlines and obligations?" Sophie's shoulders tensed, her gaze fixed on the darkened horizon. "I can't just drop everything and chase happiness like you, Adam. Some of us have responsibilities. And some of us are too scared to admit we're unhappy," he countered, his voice gentle but firm. The truth of his words stung, but Sophie couldn't bring herself to admit it. I'm trying to build a life. A stable one. That takes sacrifice. But at what cost?" Adam's expression softened, concern etched into his features. "Look, I'm not saying you should abandon everything. Just, maybe find a little space for yourself. For things that actually make you feel alive." The suggestion hung between them, its weight pressing down on her chest. Sophie wanted to argue, to dismiss his words as unrealistic and naive. But deep down, she knew he was right. Their conversation ended on a strained note, both retreating into their own thoughts. That night, Sophie lay awake, Adam's words replaying in her mind like a song she couldn't shake. The following morning, she stared at her reflection, eyes ringed with exhaustion and something deeper, discontent. She picked up her phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed a number she hadn't dared to before. "Hey, Adam," she said, her voice unsteady but determined. "You were right. About me, about everything. I can't keep living like this." His relief was palpable even through the phone. "You don't have to do it all at once, Sophie. Just take one step toward what makes you happy, even if it's something small. I think I'd like to see you. Not just squeezed into the cracks of my life, but really see you. If you're still willing to put up with me." "I think I can manage that," Adam replied, warmth flooding his tone. "And hey, if nothing else, I'll keep you entertained with awful jokes." For the first time in ages, Sophie felt something like hope. She had no idea where this path would lead, but she was willing to find out. And with Adam by her side, maybe, just maybe, she could build a life that was hers and hers alone.